Tonight, a Kiwi stylist with international connections talks about fashion. Hi everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Andrew Whiteside. This is GayTalk Tonight. My guest is Chris Lorimer. He's a fashion designer and stylist. Chris Lorimer has fashion in his blood. He's been a stylist and creative director for magazines, advertising and fashion shows. He has a large international client list and has been heavily involved in both New Zealand and Australian fashion weeks. Chris, welcome to the show. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm quite interested in you. We spoke to you very briefly about Pride and the event you'd created for Pride. But you interest me because you've had this, you've worked in fashion for quite some time. And I'm curious what it was about fashion that drew you in. What is it that you love about it?
Well, I've sort of always been connected to it in some way. My journey through the fashion industry has been quite windy. I've done worked on lots of different aspects of the industry. I've written about it, I've created it, I currently work with a lot of other designers, you know, pushing their work to other media. So I've kind of gone around in various circles in it. But yeah, I don't know, for me it's always just been kind of like the main topic of conversation, and I connect to it in different ways.
I think for those of us who are not in the industry, you know, we watch things like New Zealand's Next Top Model, America's Next Top Model. We get a very reality television view, even Project Runway, of what fashion's about.
Yeah.
That it seems glamorous, but it also seems a bit bitchy, but there's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of talent. What's the reality for you, having worked in that?
I actually think it's true to some sense. I mean, I love Project Runway. I think it's a really incredible show, actually. I'm really into it. And I've worked on some of the top model stuff that was done in New Zealand. So I've partaken in those aspects of the industry, and I kind of love them. But I think that TV aspect does want to, the TV filming of that industry wants to make it as dramatic as possible. That's what makes great TV. And in reality, yes, that's definitely there, but there's all these other things that are not as glamorous in there too. And actually it's a big industry with lots of people that you might never know were there or didn't realize did a role. So it definitely needs to be deconstructed. But there are some really wonderful documentaries about the fashion industry which are more true to its reality now, and they're not so, it's not about histrionic so much, it's about kind of seeing the personalities that are within it. That's what's really interesting at the moment.
What about big names, either big names in fashion or any celebrities? I'm not interested in gossip necessarily, but you know, but big any famous people that you've met and that you've been impressed with.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of my business is that we sort of have the doors open for people to kind of come in and work with us, and we do have people, you know, well-known people visiting our showroom and being dressed by our designers, and we help them do that, and there's lots of connection making going on. And it's just all part of our industry, is to sort of get it promoted. I mean, one of the most immediate one that comes to mind is that Lord, who's just this amazing sensation currently, and I hope will continue to be, and I'm sure will only become more of a sensation, is wearing a lot of New Zealand designers, and which is amazing because she's really got a choice to wear anything she wants pretty much now, and it will only get better for her. And she wears a couple of my clients, notably Meadowlark, it's a jewellery brand, and she wore them at the Grammys with, you know, and she just continues to love their work. So that's been cool to work with her, and meeting her in her initial stages and just seeing her kind of grow and fly is amazing. And there's a lot of ownership around her, but we are really proud of that she chooses to wear that stuff. It's up to her, no one pushes her onto it. We don't pay for it.
She's quite interesting too in her views of, you know, almost, I suppose, feminist views, really.
Yeah.
And so I'm quite interested to you working in fashion, which is obviously about image. Any thoughts you might have around, you know, the photoshopping controversies that they've had, and how many models are changed? You know, they take a picture and then they change them with a computer.
Yeah,
it goes up.
It's funny because it's really, it's actually quite standard in our industry for a photograph to be photoshopped, and that might seem callous to some people, but it is not a situation of complete reality. And we're talking about local magazines as well as international. But then I have seen certain degrees of photoshopping, and it can be very
kind of
kind.
extreme.
Yeah, and it can be very extreme. And sometimes it's extreme on purpose and it looks extreme. And it's a really amazing tool. But I don't know. I recently came across all the sort of Leonard Dunham Vogue photos, and there's actually places online where you can see the photoshopping, and even though it was controversial, it was actually quite minimal compared to what a magazine would often do to sort of fix a photo. I personally don't find it that controversial, but sometimes I do. What I find more controversial is the attitude that people have towards the images that they see and not understanding what's gone on behind them, because what you see is what you get, you know. And sometimes the reader really appreciates a photoshopped image more than the original when they see them side by side. It's kind of a catch-22, really. But I'm a firm believer in that it's an industry thing, and that it's self-policing, basically. Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who maybe isn't into fashion as such, but wanted to, you know, look good, look stylish or whatever? What's the fundamental principle you'd say to someone in a nutshell? Or is that too hard?
No, it's not too hard. It's, I'm also all about people feeling comfortable, and I think what I think is there are just lots of variations in the way that you can dress, and what you've got access to and what you can afford to buy and what suits you and what looks good. And it can be a real minefield for people. And that's fair enough. It is. And you are told, media tells you certain things, and your friends tell you certain things, and you think certain things, you know how you feel. So I don't really have a very simple explanation for it. But I think generally all those things put into kind of a list of kind of how people should start. And you know, how you feel is actually just as important as how you look. And in the best sense, those things will come together. So I feel like, you know, often it's really an individual practice, but our industry likes to tell people what is in and what is out. But that is deconstructing as well. Yeah, I don't find that an easy question to answer, but I like to take the individual at face value and then go from there.
And I guess, you know, some experimentation is always a good thing.
Oh, it's a really good thing. I mean, it's okay to hate your photos 10 years ago. Who cares? Your hair grows back. You know, it's totally fine. I mean, you know, things happen in a moment. You can't be always on the money. I mean, it's okay. It's totally fine. And sometimes being risky is way more fun.
Have you got any thoughts about what it takes to have a happy, fulfilled kind of life?
Yeah, I guess my whole thing is taking charge. My happiness and fulfillment comes from when I'm kind of steering the ship and knowing what I'm doing. And it's important to have the support around you, but at the end of the day, from my point of view, you're the only one that's accountable. So I guess happiness and fulfillment comes from kind of just pushing ahead and trying to get the things that you want happening and working them out. And that's sort of my recipe, I suppose.
Chris Lorimer, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.